Hey everybody, welcome to Zoom Chats 2020, episode 4. This afternoon we are going to have an absolutely fantastic conversation with an incredible director. She is a retired high school choral director of 31 years. She's a member of the regional faculty of Region 4 and a member of the international faculty. Kim was also selected to receive the 2005 Sweet Adeline's International MENC Award. She has been the director of the Metro Nashville Chorus since 1988. They have competed at international many times, and they were named the Harmony Classic champions in both A and the AA divisions. They've won the Harmony Achievement Award 4 times in a row and placed 9th in the International Chorus Contest in 2018. And we know that they are very much looking forward to representing Region 4 in St. Louis in 2021. So welcome, Kim, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much, Renee, and I'm delighted to be here and do this. I think it's a great idea.
Great. So tell us how you got into Sweet Adelines.
Well, interesting. I was raised in a very musical family. My father and mother both sang, and I have 3 sisters and a brother. So growing up, we heard the Lennon sisters, the Andrews sisters, the McGuire sisters, and big band sound. And my sisters and I, when we were doing dishes, would sing what we heard on the records. We would pick up Andrews sisters, and we would just take turns. You take this part, this part. So I was raised with lots of singing and harmony in my family. And my dad dabbled a little bit in barbershop. He visited some courses. He never joined, but he would take us as children to barbershop shows. And we would go to barbershop shows, and he'd lean over and say, "You hear that 9th chord?" And I'm going, I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what that was as a kid. So when I was in high school, my dad had a tag book that he had picked up at one of the rehearsals he had gone to. And so we would sit around and sing tags, and we would pick parts. And so that was my first exposure to barbershop. And so then when I got out of college, very quickly, my first year I was teaching a music appreciation class and talking to the class about all sorts of music and that I would want them to appreciate music. And one young man raised his hand and he said, "Have you ever heard of barbershop?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, have you ever heard of Sweet Adelines?" And I said, "Well, yes." He said, "Well, my mother's in the Sweet Adeline chorus." And I was fresh out of college and trying to look for something for me to do. I was teaching music. And I said, "Well, when do they rehearse?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "Where do they rehearse?" He goes, "I don't know." I said, "Okay, so the next time your mother mentions this, would you let me know?" So this was on a Monday. That afternoon, I got home from school and she called me. He went home and told her. She found my number and called me. And on Tuesday, I went to Metro Nashville Chorus Rehearsal. And the rest is history.
So today I know you wanted to talk about 2 specific things that you really have learned to do in the Zoom setting with your chorus. And I know that chorus members will be interested in hearing that, and most especially all of our directors out there trying to fill those agendas for their Zoom rehearsals.
So I, like every other director, when all of this happened, I immediately went to my resources on hand, which was my computer. And I had some recordings of the chorus doing vocal exercises that I had recorded years ago. So the biggest thing was vocal exercises. So I started right away, started playing these recordings of this. And then one of my members in the chorus, Natalie Allen, is also a high school choral director. And she sent me an email and said, J.W. Pepper, who is a big music distributor that most of us in the United States are familiar with, they had released some warm-up videos. So I went online and I looked at them and I bought 3 of them. There's 5 of them available, but they're 6 to 7 minutes long each. And I wanted just to play a clip of one for you, just to show you what this gentleman does.
All right, if you want to start following the tempo that you see and hear, you could start pulsing on an SH sh sound. Let's start with quarter notes. Ready? And sh. All right, and let's get ready to switch to 8th notes on every beat. Try and keep them consistent. and get ready. We're going to start changing the tempo. Still keep 8 notes.
So I love the fact the visual went along with it. I loved that. And then let me fast forward, just show you something else he does. He goes to singing and bubbling. And so he continues with vocal warm-ups. The only thing I don't agree with is where he says, keep your teeth slightly clenched. And so I use that disclaimer, and don't do that. They loved seeing the visual with the vocal.
Right.
And they're very good. And and I also use these when I go out and visit courses now.
Yeah.
I use those, and I use one a week. And what I do is I use one for 2 weeks in a row, then I use the next one, just to rotate them around. Yeah, but they're very good. So this led me, when I started showing these to my chorus, and they were saying they loved the visual with the vocal, then this led me to think I need to change what I'm doing with my vocal warm-ups. So I have, like a lot of directors, I have a ton of vocal warm-ups that I have learned. We've learned them by rote. And I had a lot of them written down by numbers, in a notebook, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all this. So about 5 years ago, I sent them to a person in my chorus, Jennifer Palis, who has a finale. And I said, can you put these and notate them? Right. So I sent her all these vocal warm-ups, and she notated them on slides. And I use those slides when I teach. So now when all of this happened, I took the slides, and then I embedded singing along. And I have descriptions on the slides as reminders. And then I've embedded them with vocal recording, like this. This exercise, V, vo, V, has a V in front of the vowels to place the sound forward. It is in the key of C, and that is also the first note. This helps combine staccato with legato. Vivo, vi, vivo, vi, vivo, vi, vivo, vi, vivo, vi, vivo. And so now I have these vocal warm-ups that I have already had in slides, and now I've embedded singing along with them, and I use those with the chorus now, looking at the visual with the vocal. So this has been a big revelation for me in working with my chorus at how important the visual is, which we take for granted when we're in person rehearsing. And we sing these warm-ups, we teach them the warm-ups. And so the things that are on the beginning of the audio that I have done are things I would say to them in rehearsal. Okay, now this exercise, we want to focus on this. We want to remember these things.
I love this because you're very specifically defining what the exercise is for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when we have in-person rehearsals, usually when I would do a vocal exercise with the chorus, we would sing it once or twice, and then I'd stop and I'd say, now tell me what you can work on as a singer. Yeah. And so then they would share from the risers, well, I'm working on this and I'm working on this. And that too takes it from me from giving them every point of instruction. But for the singers on the risers to hear other people saying, I'm doing this, and somebody's light will go on and go, oh, okay.
Right.
So, vocal warm-ups are, to me, they're the most important part of our rehearsal night because it sets the whole tone.
We still have about 50% of our members across the organization don't read music. So they're familiar with looking at the paper, but they don't necessarily... they would say that they can't read music. So that visual reinforcement of just the warm-up exercises helps them learn really how much they are able to follow along, even if they couldn't name the name of every note. So,
right. And what I like that he does with the videos is he says, now let's sing quarter notes. So now they know what they look, because they've heard us refer to.
That's what I was thinking. And then when the eighth notes came by.
Yeah, the repetition of it all.
The other thing you were talking with me about before we started filming was that you wanted to talk about rehearsal pacing. We're very lucky to get that information from you today. So when you look at rehearsal pacing in Zoom meetings, what have you learned in the last 4 months?
Our course rehearsals were pretty fast paced, and what I've learned with Zoom is I've slowed that down now. And we've all realized, I think, that when this all happened, the music was not the priority. The well-being of all my singers became the priority. So when I say slow down the pace now, we don't talk on the risers, but now that we have Zoom, I allow people to say, what are you thinking? What are you feeling today? One night we did, right at the beginning of rehearsal, I said, type into chat one word of how you're feeling right now.
Oh, that's great.
And they all typed that in, and then we talked about it. And I thought, okay, this is more important than getting to the music. And so the rehearsal pacing has been much slower to let singers really share their feelings.
So it's wonderful that you're giving them that opportunity then to share. I
Oh,
had no idea how much my circadian rhythm revolved around Wednesday night, and being there and getting that rush of creating music, hearing music, seeing friends, the whole energy that comes from a rehearsal,
mhm.
for that to, that we're all missing that. So you're finding that having them share and talk in a different way is helping them feel connected.
Yes. Yeah, I think it is. And so we, after we do our vocal exercises and introduce guests and have our why we sing moment, then I say, are there any good news? People want to share things. And again, if I had done that at rehearsal, I'd have moved through it quickly. Right. And now we just kind of, well, that's great. And people will comment, hey, that's wonderful. And, we unmute people, give them a chance to support each other. So that has slowed down a lot for me as a director. And I'm going to share one other thing that I did with my chorus is I had recordings also of the chorus singing, which we were performing, repertoire, and reviewing that. And I was walking one day and listening to NPR, as I do when I walk and exercise, and they were talking about during COVID, they're in the studio now, they're not doing live shows. Like, wait, don't tell me. And so they were pumping in audience sounds. And I thought, that's what we need. So I went home and found a recording with applause on it. I clipped it off, and every time we perform a rep song, the applause comes on.
You're playing applause after they're done singing?
Yes, and they loved it. The first night I did it, they went crazy about it. And so I've been doing it every week. And if I forget to play the applause after we sing a song, somebody will go, no applause.
I'll tell you, as a chorus member, we're all so happy that you're out there still working on our behalf and helping us figure out this whole Zoom room thing. And I keep wondering what we all would have done if this happened 15 years ago,
Oh,
or
yeah.
even 10.
Would have been in trouble.
Whole shutdown and the isolation would have been so different if we couldn't reach out this way. So
That's,
people are very frustrated by the fact that we can't sing because of the delay, except we can see each other, and just having that screen open up
mhm.
and see everybody. It's been a huge help, and it's wonderful to hear some of the things you've learned throughout your 4 months of Zoom rehearsing.
And I'm still learning. I mean, I think we're all learning. And the other thing, and you've probably heard this as well, is it's much harder to plan a virtual rehearsal than an in-person rehearsal.
Really, directors are working so hard. When I was getting ready to meet with you today, I was thinking about the year at International where you had 38 singers on stage. Now these numbers, I think these are right. 38 members on stage, and you scored a 90 in sound.
Yes.
Is that the
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and it was fantastic. So I know they've taken advantage of everything that you brought to them from your professional teaching career and all the wonderful years with you as their director. So it's really wonderful to get to speak with you today, and I appreciate you sharing all of those tips with our directors out there. And if you come up with anything else you want to share, just let me know.
I will.
We'll make sure to send that out so that we can all be making our Zoom rehearsals as effective as possible.
Absolutely.
So much for joining us today, Cam. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much, Renee. I've enjoyed it.